growing from Kenny.
That's making me laugh behind the scenes, which is really mean because I already said I was overtired. So welcome to the VHS Club. This is our last Halloween episode, unless we decide to take Halloween into November, which who knows, we might. We might just ride this ride.
Might put a hit on us if we do that.
Yeah,
are
I'm
we
cool
allowed
with it.
to?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, in my house, we're not allowed to start thinking about the holiday season until December 1st. So it feels like November's it's got some room. It's got some room in there. But
that was a rule I made in our house when I was like 10. I was like, Mom, like, not until December 1st.
Yeah, that rule's stupid in my personal opinion, but here we are. So I'll take it back by going real deep into Halloween movies. But getting ahead of ourselves, because tonight we are talking about Hocus Pocus. Only the first movie, because Nat has all kinds of feels about the second. So if you want to talk about the second, you're gonna have to do it by sharing this episode out and then leaving your comments below. Because tonight we are talking only about the first one, the best one, the forever love. Yeah.
Kenny Ortega one. Yeah.
The Kenny Ortega one. I had this genius idea, Nat. I didn't do it for this episode, but maybe I will surprise you / horrify you with setting a little countdown timer so that I could do something like, okay, Nat, you have 1 minute to describe what this movie is about. And we could like add some pressure to the episode. I'm not going to do that tonight, but you know.
Oh, no. I don't know if my neurodivergent brain will accept that reality, but we should try it because it might be funny for everybody.
We should try it because it might be really funny. Because I set a timer to try to figure out if I could keep the three movie facts video shorts that we do. If you haven't seen those, they're on our YouTube channel. But I try to keep those under a minute because then they appear as YouTube shorts, which is just fun and more shareable. But it's really hard. I'm watching like the timer and I'm like, and then I forget all the facts and I have to re-record them like what feels like 100 times. So bringing that pressure in. But without further ado, let's talk Hocus Pocus, and in as much time as you'd like, tell us what this movie is about.
So the movie takes place in Salem, in the 1650s, early 1650s, 1653, I feel. I didn't actually look that up.
Yeah, that checks out for the history of Salem.
All right, so it takes place starting in 1653. These three sister witches live in the woods, and a young girl goes missing on Halloween, on the night of Halloween, and her brother goes to try and rescue her. And these witches are stealing her youth. So they create a potion, a spell to steal her youth. So they, instead of being old, ugly hags, they are young and beautiful.
Yeah.
And the townspeople hang them as
you do.
Two witches in Salem. And but as they were being hung, the three witches cursed the town of Salem, and that when a young virgin lights the black flame candle, they will come back and finish their job and steal the souls of all the children of Salem.
Yeah. Hey, I think you were close. I mean, that's the gist of the movie. I feel like you're there. You did it.
We flash forward to now 1993, I believe. Yep. And these high school kids, this high school boy and his crush, this girl that he likes, Max and Allison, are sort of hanging out on Halloween because they bump into each other while he's walking his younger sister Danny out for trick-or-treating to get candy. And they decide to go to the old Salem, or the old Sanderson sisters' house, which had over time been turned into a tourist attraction and gift shop, but then has since been abandoned. And he's just goofing around in there, and they're looking at stuff, and they're like, oh, there's the spell book, whatever. And he's like, oh, a candle. I'll light this for no reason, because, kids.
Because why not? I mean, romantic. Nothing says romance like a Halloween night candle with your sister. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and your 8-year-old sister.
Yeah.
And then the witches come back, and ensues the witches trying to find their magic spell book, capture these children, recreate their spell, all before the sunrise. At the end, that ends Hallows Eve, and that's it. And it's funny, and it's done by Kenny Ortega. This was his first, I think, or his second big feature film. So this was kind of a make or break for him, and luckily it was a make, because he also gave us other fun Disney movies such as High School Musical. I say fun, not good. Okay, fun.
Not good. Yeah,
fun movies.
let's just define the rating system for this episode as being this is a cult classic. It's a family movie, not a good movie. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie, and I think it does a really effective job of introducing tweens and maybe like early teens to this genre, to like almost this genre.
to like a young adult horror genre, which was very popular in the 80s and 90s, by the way. So this was kind of just feeding into that whole like R.L. Stine, Fear Street, Goosebumps, the author Christopher Pike, like all of those types of things. I mean, the movie, if we look at the movie, it's not good in any sense of like historical accuracy to Salem, to witches, to the occult, to anything. It's pretty trash on that aspect, but on like a Disney fictional children's version of like scary witches on Halloween, it's pretty good.
So a few facts as we're diving into this one. So in what you just said, so it now, because of the cult classic level of just crazy love of this movie, Salem, of which there's like a few like iconic kind of scenes in this movie that like are very Salem, but Salem, you can actually now go and tour the house where Allison's family is having their Halloween party, which is like actually not that big of a deal part of this movie, but that's the house that you can go and like tour, and they decorate it to look like the scene from the movie every single year. So that's like a big tourist attraction there. Not a whole lot else that's like actually accurately Salem, but kind of fun that you can actually go and see that.
In
it was that's a good question.
Some of the scenes, like, you know, the fountain they're running through from the school. So they're running through the school, they're leaving the schoolyard, and there's like grass in the front lawn of the school, and they're running, and they pass a water fountain. That's the same water fountain from the opening theme sequence of Friends, which is supposed to be New York, and clearly it's not. But like, so like, is that like on a lot somewhere in Hollywood?
I'm embarrassed to say that I knew that fact and had that in mind, but I don't believe that the entire movie was filmed in Salem, but definitely enough of it that you can recognize things in the background. So Salem, you know, like is visible, and if you're in the city, you can point out moments from the movie. And obviously Salem is like fully embraced this movie again because of its popularity. But the craziest fact that I did not know until like really recently is that this movie stupidly was released in July. They straight up released this in July because, and I quote, kids were on summer vacation. So they're like, more kids will watch this because of summer vacation. And I just don't even
really.
I don't like.
I mean, I know there's the whole summer blockbuster thing, but I mean, we never really went to see movies in the summer because we had outdoor things that we needed to do during. And then this just could be because we're from the East Coast. Like there's a lot of winter here. Fall is like a mixed bag of like spring, summer, winter. Not really much fall, mostly winter. So yeah, we like summer for us was precious time outside and vitamin D, you know. So
like, so it was in my valuable opinion, and in just the results of this film actually performed pretty poorly, and the main reason is that they released it in July when it is very clearly a Halloween movie. But again, this movie, and we'll talk about this I think a little bit more when we finally get around to doing Princess Bride, but there are movies like this where they just like swept in the rental space and the like, you know, TV release and kind of had this second life and grew into these cult classics.
Didn't they
much
re-release
later.
it a second time at Halloween though? I think they re-released this at Halloween. I don't know if it was the same year, but I think I read that somewhere.
Well, here we go. We have this just in from our live fact checkers. Paul says the filming location, Plymouth Plantation, and a specific address, because Paul is nothing if not accurate. 137 Warren Avenue, Plymouth, Massachusetts, if you want to go. So it is Allison's house is the only location in Salem. Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yeah. So and it's still the Allison's house, which is it's called the Ropes Mansion, and that is actually owned by the Peabody Essex Museum.
Why Ropes? Do they hang people there?
You know what? Like you're really making me look dumb, given that I live so close to Salem and have been there.
I'm like, oh no! Like, America, you shock me.
No,
why ropes? Maybe
I don't know.
Ropes for ships.
Paul,
maybe.
help me. Paul, help me out. Why is it called the Ropes Mansion? But yeah, it's owned by the Peabody Essex Museum, so you can absolutely like go and tour it, and they make a big deal about it at Halloween. But yeah, not filmed at Halloween. And then the other thing I wanted to point out before we jump into kind of like the details of this movie, but you were saying like if we compare this movie, which we shouldn't, but why not? If we compare this one against like some of the other more serious movies that are in the Halloween genre, like Practical Magic and The Craft, witch movies, those movies like actually made an effort to be somewhat authentic to like witchcraft and actual witches and Wiccan and like the whole deal. This one doesn't at all, as you said, and that actually was like an issue. So the woman who plays oh gosh, and now of course it's slipping my mind completely. Not Bette Midler and not Sarah Jessica Parker, the third witch. I'm so sorry. Mary. What's her real name though?
Her real name is Kathy.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm there.
Her fictional name is Mary. You named them both.
we'll call her Mary in this because why not? But she was actually really concerned about being in this movie because she thought like she did not want to offend people. So in many ways, she went as kind of silly and campy as possible in her portrayal of Mary, just because she just wanted to be like real clear that like we're aware that this is like these characters are meant to be kind of silly, spoofy to put kids and families at ease amidst like what is otherwise kind of a scary story. Like we're like straight up murdering children and like let's watch this together as a family. So so she did make an effort to be able to do that. Doc is telling us that Ropes is the last name of the family, which was my guess. So I'm feeling pretty good.
I'm like Salem hanging. Oh my, or ships. Ships was another option.
Yeah, also a port city. So
yes.
Yeah. I will say, so Nat, and we talked about this a little bit right before we jumped on, but in my mind, when I think about like Halloween movies for kids, or what Halloween movies I watched as a kid, and I'm talking like before we got into Friday the 13th and the other like slasher flicks, for me, it was this one and it was Ernest Scared Stupid. And if you asked me about both of those movies in like that time period, I would have told you that they were straight up terrifying. Like I was like, oh, these were scary movies. These were scary movies, you guys. I watched them many times, but they were really scary. And then of course I rewatched them with my kids like this year and previous years, and I'm like, not that scary.
It's not scary. The kids aren't scary. It was just me. Hey, look, we were also scared that quicksand was going to be a much bigger problem in the 80s and 90s. So
yeah, didn't come to fruition, thankfully. Yeah.
No.
But yeah, those two like both had this like in Ernest Scared Stupid, the kids were like turned to into like little like wood statues, and there was just so this one's actually scarier because they're just like killed, but
their souls are sucked out of their body. It's pretty scary.
Souls are sucked out of their bodies.
Yeah, I was thinking, I'm like, what other Halloween movies other than like Charlie Brown's The Great Pumpkin? Like there's Ernest Scared Stupid. Like this really found such a niche because there really isn't much to fill that holiday, right? It's a huge holiday in North America. And like, yeah, of course we should market to it, right? Like, we should cater to the holiday, and it's there just doesn't seem to be a lot for that age group.
Yeah.
And I feel like this is just one of those things where every year it's like, oh, Halloween, the kids are going to watch Hocus Pocus, you know?
Yeah, it does. Like, there is something, and I don't remember if that was like as much of a thing back when these movies came out, or if they've just really defined this, but there is now this idea of like, oh, well, every Halloween we watch Hocus Pocus, every Christmas we watch, like, there's like that tradition where it's like, well, we have to do this every single year because that's like, that is a tradition and a memory and is like a fun experience for us all to do together. And Hocus Pocus 100% fits into that. Like, even before we had kids, this was when we were watching every single year to remember,
exactly.
to have fun and remember.
Oh, and Doc points out Casper as well. Which
Casper,
I put out of my mind because I rewatched it a few months ago.
I just
like,
rewatched that.
Oh, and it's as an adult seeing the movie, I'm like, this is horrific. That's a whole other we could have an hour discussion about how horrified I was and traumatized watching it. Like, gone was the whole joy of seeing Casper turn into his human form at the end of it, which is all I remembered until I rewatched it. And then it's like, oh my god, this movie's horrific.
Yeah.
Like, not as in terrible, but as in like, yeah, real dark.
Well, now I'm thinking of all the other ones, right? Because there's Casper, there's Halloween Town, which I personally was never as into, but people around here seem to be really big in that one. And then there is Beetlejuice.
We didn't have Disney Channel
That could be it.
In Canada. It was like on satellite, and only rich people had satellites. So like, we never got all those like Disney Channel movies and shows that kids grew up with.
That's true. I did watch Beetlejuice endlessly though, so that's another one.
That was kind of not for kids, and kind of pretty much just for adults. Like,
still watch that one
in it. It's like one of those things you're rewatching it, you're like, oh, okay, yeah, no, we're gonna turn that off now because little ears. Like, you don't think about it, but this one is for children.
Well, so speaking of this, one of the moments as a parent in watching this for the first time with your kids is that this is like one of the few, I think they said this is like either the only or certainly one of the first Disney movies that uses the word virgin, which is very like not Disney, you guys, not very Disney about it. And so this was like the conversation where Dane was like, well, should we let the kids watch this? Because then they're going to ask us what that is. And none of us really want to talk about it. And I was like, yeah, let's just see what happens. Like, I'm cool with answering all those questions. Let's roll the dice here. And they say it way more times than I remembered or thought. Like I in my mind, I was like, they say virgin like when the candle
4
happens.
or 5 times?
They say it like what feels like 10 times in this movie. And thankfully, like my kids were just like, didn't hear or read, just like my kids who ask questions about everything just did not at all didn't register that even kind of, so it worked out.
We didn't question it. Like, did you ask your parents what virgin meant when you were little? When you saw this? I don't know.
I'm like, maybe I watched like the made for TV version where they just like cut that out. I feel like every movie that I've been rewatching with my kids, I only watched like the made for TV version where like they were like, instead of like the swear word, it was like cheeseburger, John, why would you do that? Like, and I was like, they don't just say cheeseburger? Like, I thought.
So at the ending of Gold Yeller what really happens, right? Like, okay, just checking, because on the TV version,
that's what I don't care for.
No, that movie was horrifying. I literally remember being like watching it and turning to my dad and be like, no, but he's Old Yeller. He's like a superhero. He's the same as like Superman. He's alive, right? Old Yeller's all fine. And he's like, no, they hate to kill him because he had rabies. I'm like, well, give him medicine. My dad's like, oh shit. Like, what did I do?
See?
Yeah, that was a thing. But I never asked about virgins.
Yeah, see.
Couldn't care less.
I know, it's like, it was kind of a weird choice. You're like, hey, you know what? Like, let's just throw this into just like in a family friendly movie. Feels like a weird choice. And apparently this movie was also inspired by a like bedtime story that the writer told his kids. And I was like, weird choice for your to be like, let's talk about how this no good virgin brought these witches back to life. We're like, okay.
Yeah, I think it was a story he told his sister, which still doesn't make it better than telling his children. But
I don't know. It feels like a little bit better that he would tell his sister that.
Maybe he's just scaring his sister from dating that guy in high school. So it could, but who knows?
Like, kind of scaring you, like maybe in the wrong way, being like it's It's like the opposite. Maybe it's making fun of slasher movies. It's like the opposite of slasher movies. It's like the witches can't come back if everyone is just sleeping around with everyone, which is like the opposite of slasher movies, where it's like everyone needs to be a virgin or we're all gonna die. This one's like, you will all die. You will all die unless you are a virgin.
Yeah. So the casting: Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, and is it Kathy Najimy?
Kathy, whose last name I don't know.
I can't remember how you pronounce her last name.
That's all right. We'll call her Kathy. We're friends.
Najimy. Kathy Najimy. Anyways, phenomenal. She's such a good actor. She's such a good character actor. Like her expressions are, and her in this movie. I found that Mary was very much like a bloodhound. Like she was always she's smelling everything, she's sniffing everything. And I found that Sarah was much more like a cat, where she just like doesn't really care what the sisters are doing. She's like poking and pawing at the boys in the cage. Every time a man comes by, she's like just thirsty. She's like, oh, I want to play with him. Like it's very cat energy, like I thought that was super fun. And then Bette Midler, of course, is just amazing in this, and she does sing a song in this. It's not a musical movie except for that one scene where there is a song,
but the song puts a spell on people, so it's fair. It's allowed.
Actually, no, there is another song. Sarah sings her children's song,
the lure the children to their death song.
Rumor has it, though some people have tried to debunk it. It's not fully, anyways, it's up for debate. It is possibly based on a poem written by Edgar Allan Poe called Come With Me Children, or Come Play With Me Children. And it's supposed to be this sort of spooky gothic tune. Though some Poeans have said that it's not a Poe poem.
So many layers here, right? So it might be based on a Poe poem, but then the people who love Poe do not believe that he wrote that poem. So it could be based on a Poe poem or not a Poe poem. Oh man, welcome to Halloween.
This is a rabbit hole.
Yep.
So, I mean, it seems like it can be a Poe poem, and it's only really been disproved, quote unquote, that it's not a Poe poem when this movie became popular. So, and also the person who wrote the lyrics for this and a couple of other little incantations he also wrote for this film, he wrote this song with Jack Horner, who's a famous movie score person. Yes. Yes, that one was quite famous. So they're credited with the writing of the song. And some of the lyrics are a little bit different than the Poe poem. But anyways, I just thought that was fun because it sounds like it is something that he would do.
Okay, I gotta spend a second here calling out some pretty epicness in the live studio audience. So if you don't hang out in our live studio audience, you're missing everything because they're incredible. Shout out to them. We record live in front of these incredible people through YouTube almost every Thursday at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we're shocked and horrified to find out that Val has not seen Hocus Pocus. Val, you just need to go right now. Stop watching this. This is a waste compared to go and watch Hocus Pocus, and then we can talk separately. No, just kidding. But you should see it. It's iconic. And then I do love that Val then followed up and said, I didn't know anything about Hocus Pocus until it was the 25th anniversary. I was in the house band backing up the artists and original actors. They did the show at the Hollywood Cemetery. Well, you need to come on and tell us of that story.
A hero, Val.
You are a hero.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And yet my heart breaks that you did all that and still didn't see the movie. Those actors are going to be so upset to know
it's
this.
I sing, that's what I do.
Yeah. And then before we jump back in, two more incredible things. So Dan says that his daughter saw this and thought all three witches were named Karen, which shout out. Shout out to your
Shout out
daughter.
to your
That's
daughter.
incredible.
She's epic.
That's incredible.
They are Karens.
They're Karens.
Yeah.
They are Karens. And then Doc's asking a trivia question, which I don't know the answer to. Where was Bette Midler born? So the rest of you in the studio audience will have to answer for us, and then Doc can give us the right answer at the end. But I love a trivia. Love a trivia question. Yeah, the actresses, the three of them are great together because they're all so different from each other, and they're all incredible in the roles, and they all are like, again, they do a really nice job of breaking up the tension of the movie. So they're so like slapsticky and silly, and like, you know, they're from the 1600s, so they have like no idea how anything works, so they're easy to trick into like, and to, you know, and to be outsmarted by kids, which then makes it feel safer and more fun for kids to watch this movie. So I think they do a really like beautiful job of this, and it warms my heart that Bette Midler is like, this is still one of my favorite movies. And I'm like, me too, Bette Midler, me too.
She apparently walked around with a book of period accurate, so like 1650s accurate vocabulary,
and insults,
so every time every time she would like cuss, it would be a period accurate swear word. So, and that makes it fun because things like I can't think of
twilly wigs or something like that. She was
you know, or running amok. Like nobody really says amok anymore, but
amok.
Which, okay, if there were memes and shit went viral in 1993, that would have been the scene. Because when I watch this movie, the one thing that I can't get out of my head after is amok. When Bette Midler like sucker punches her in the stomach for being a pain.
Yeah.
We did that all the time. When this movie came out, you go into any elementary schoolyard, everybody's jumping up and down going, amok. Like that was the moment.
And forgive us if you're listening and not watching this because it's hard to describe, but the three sisters stand together and walk in this like crazy,
like sort of
zigzaggy side to side thing where they're like linked arms, and they're like trying, like, you know, sniffing and acting all incredibly strange. And there's something, I don't know. Again, it's like, it's a creepy campiness where you're like equal parts as a kid being like, okay, but they kill people. And then also, but they're so silly and stupid that you can't help but like, you could get away. The kids are probably going to get away. My kids absolutely loved two characters in this movie. No, one was the book. My kids like love the book that has like the eye and comes to life and like and zooms through the air to Bette Midler's character when she calls it. My kids like loved book. Book is their favorite. And then the kids also really loved the cat, right? So the cat, who is also the brother of the original girl that it was killed at the beginning of the movie, he was cursed and turned into a cat. And so he's this black cat that is with the modern aged kids all the way through. And there's something about a talking cat. It brought back Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes that I was like,
apparently it was the same animatronic cat.
I believe it. It looked exactly the same.
In the movie, they used real cats. Apparently they used
9 or like 12, some ridiculous amount of cats.
An obscene amount of cats. So it was all cats that had different skills. Like one cuddled really well with the children. One was good at jumping on command. One was really good at running on command. So they had all these different black cats in the movie. But when he spoke with a human voice, it was the same cat as Sabrina the Teenage Witch, which is super cute.
I did also love that the actor that plays like the real life boy who was turned into a cat is different than the voice of the cat. Like they were like, we don't really want your voice.
The voice of the boy too. He was dubbed over. He just had to lip sync to this other actor's
voice.
Like
the Darth Vader effect, right?
Yes, really it was.
Yeah, which is fascinating.
Yeah, apparently his voice was too modernized. He couldn't pull off a good accent, which, not that we're mentioning the second movie, but let's just say when they do their historical flashback, there is no accents. And it sent me. So, anyways, it doesn't exist. So one thing that I loved about this movie was the guest appearances. There was the brother and sister duo Gary Marshall and Penny Marshall, which they used to pop up in each other's movies all the time. And this wasn't their movie, but they've worked a lot with Bette Midler. So they did her one of her more
married
famous
couple in this, which is like, yeah, ridiculous. But
they were. I think Gary Marshall did Beaches, which is like one of my favorite Bette Midler movies. It's too sad. It's like one of the saddest movies I've ever seen in my life. So, like,
Veto.
I mean,
Veto. We're not reviewing that one.
Like, cried too much. Yeah. So they're in it. He plays Satan. They bump into him. So it's Halloween. Everybody's dressed up. He's dressed in a devil's costume to give out candy, and they're like, oh, Master! The witches don't know that it's not the real devil, so he invites them in, and then his like grumpy wife with her hair curlers and her ratty like house coat, chain smoking, is like, get out of our house. You know? I love that. I thought that was so funny, and it brought in such like a funny, light part of the movie. It made the witches a lot less scary because they're obviously so not in tune with the 20th century.
Yeah, they're out of their element. I equally really loved the bus scene. So like they like step out into the street and like the bus pulls up and they like don't know what to do with the entire bus thing, but end up like winning over the bus driver, which I think is hilarious.
Well, the perverted bus driver who's like, hey honey, come and sit on my lap with his like New York accent. I'm like, you're in Boston, honey. Like, it's the wrong accent. But, and there's the kind of inappropriate but I guess funny for the grown-ups when they're driving in the bus and Sarah is sitting on his lap and they hit a pothole and he's like, oh, bump, and it's like, oh. Anyways, not great for kids, but super funny for the rest of us.
Yeah, and not caught by kids, so whatever.
Exactly.
All good in that front. All good. I'm looking through Paul's comments. Yeah, Max is the name of the boy, the virgin that brings the witches back, and the boy is Thackeray, and I think his last name is Binx, right? Thackeray Binx. So they call when he's a cat, they call him Binx, and his real full name is Thackeray Binx.
It's funny how in most of these movies, usually it's like the boy that sort of, especially in this time period, it's usually the boy that's like clever and figures everything out. But in this one, it's Allison who's just like, honey, you're cute, so you're along for the ride, but I'm going to go save your sister and I have a plan.
She's like so Max and his sister are new to the town, and Allison knows everything about Salem. Like she clearly both has lived there for a long time and also likes history. So she's, she knew originally about the Sanderson sisters. She knows like how to get around town. She knows like all of the different things to get all the way through. So I did like that. It was like a nice grouping. Like it was, I also love Thora Birch as well, who plays Danny, his little sister, which it was fun to have the little sister and like, the big brother have to act like he's trying to win over this girl, but he's also needs to protect and save his sister. And in the end, it's about family. It's about working together. It's about friendship and about friendship. For being like as campy and cheesy as it is, it did really pull together some like nice messages. Oh, and we should talk about Billy Bones. That was another one of my kids' favorite characters in this. He's fantastic, where he plays the zombie, I guess, for lack of a better word. He's the
reanimated corpse.
The reanimated corpse who is the lover of two of the Sanderson sisters. Winifred, although he would only say one.
On the side. Sarah.
And on the side, Sarah. And so he they bring him back to life to try to stop the kids from foiling their plans. And he's just like, he, again, like the witches, like initially comes across as being like really scary. And when you're watching it with kids, or if you are a kid watching it, you're like, oh, this guy's gonna like get us. He's a zombie. He's scary. And then of course his mouth is sewn shut because he wouldn't stop talking when he was alive. And by the time you get his mouth open, he's just like annoyed and curmudgeon-y and funny, and so then he becomes this very sort of likable character, and
he ends up helping the kids in the end
he
because
ends
he's
up
like done with
being a
his
good
sisters.
guy. Yeah,
He's like, you guys, you sewed my mouth shut, you killed me, now you're bringing back my corpse 300 years later, like, give me a break. He's like, I'm gonna help these kids.
yeah,
Yeah, he was fun. He ended up being a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
So in one of the scenes, it seems the whole town is at the high school. Like all the parents are at the high school.
Once again,
for this
all
big
of the
dance.
adults are like abandon their kids on
Who was
Halloween
giving out
night.
the candy, by the
Who's
way?
giving out the Who's taking the kids trick or treating? Like, I thought that was the role of the
Clearly
parents.
siblings. This is end of latchkey
Siblings
kids,
and
let's be honest.
babysitters in the last movie, so yeah.
End of the latchkey kids. The parents didn't care. They're like, we have a Halloween dance.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who provided all the costumes? The Disney wardrobe. They just went through the Disney closet and was like picked out all stuff from other movies. So it's like if you look through it, you could see some recognizable costumes.
So jealous. Yeah.
I know. I'm like, oh, that Dracula costume was really like a Disney Dracula costume. I'm like, that's so cool. That would be fun. I would love to have a day in like the wardrobe closet of Disney.
Yeah.
That vault would be fun.
See, and this movie does a much better job of explaining like where all the parents are than Halloween did.
Oh, yes. Yes.
So there's that.
Oh, yeah. So the reason, actually, that was one thing I did think of because of last week's episode. We're like, where are the parents?
Mm-hmm.
In this one, so the parents are at this dance, and the witches put a spell on them to keep them trapped at the dance. So they are forever stuck dancing to this song, I've Put a Spell on You. Mm-hmm. So they're stuck there and they're dancing, and then it shows at the end of the movie, it's already like, it has to be about, 6 a.m. at this point the next day.
It's a pretty long night.
Yeah. Because the kids, they think they've destroyed the witches. They think they've saved all of Salem. They go home. They go to bed. The teenagers are snuggled up. She wakes up and she's like, oh my God, Max, it's 5 a.m. My parents are going to kill me. Well, no, they're at the dance and they're still dancing. Because it's only after 5 a.m. that the sisters find Book and then try to steal the kids' souls. But so the parents were dancing, and I did love the scene when they're coming out, and it's like their sweat pouring off of them. They're like, oh man, that was a great party. I never thought I could dance that much. It was really cute.
As usual, the parents are just completely clueless as to what's happened. They're just like, oh, it's fine. Everything's fine.
They'll have a bit of a draft when they get home, and like the top part of their roof is blown off, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I just... yeah, it carried it away all the way through. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to add to this one, but I feel like it just was
there was one thing, and like Dani, who's played by Thora Birch, the young sister, she's super cute and super lovable and obviously like very kind-hearted, and she knew how to like manipulate her brother, but then also be like, look, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to manipulate you. I just love you and I want to spend time with you. And you, like every time she does something, you're like, oh my God, kid, shut up. And then you're like, oh, but she's so sweet. Like when she gets kidnapped at the end of the movie by the witches, like it was avoidable. I mean, super sweet. Billy's head got lobbed off and he's wandering around the zombies trying to find his zombie head. So she goes and helps him and gets his head back to him, but I'm like, could you not wait 5 minutes for the sun to finish coming up before you did that? Like Dani. Also, the witches probably would still be alive today if they weren't obsessed with getting back at Dani for calling them ugly. Like, Winnie does have a bit of a temperament of a child. She's very emotional and very temperamental. And the second that Dani called Winifred ugly, she's like, well, we only have enough potion for one more kid. It'll keep us going for another 300 years. So like we have 2 kids in cages right here in front of us, but we're going to go get that one little bitch.
Which is like even more kind of intensely weird and stupid of them. Because they need
not good foresight.
they beyond the fact that they'll just like they get younger and live longer with every child's soul that they steal. But in this particular situation, right? If we remember the plot of this movie, you're like they're only brought back to life again by this curse that they gave for one night. Right. So in order to stay alive, they need to take at least one child's soul. And they're like, we have these two, but we should really go after this additional one.
Other one, because
like,
she was
instead of like,
in my butt.
maybe we'll go after that other one tomorrow because we'll still be alive because we'll just kill these two. But instead they're like, nah, we'll go after this one right now and risk,
sassy.
and risk dying again, which obviously they do. I will say one of my favorite parts of this, maybe it's not my favorite part of this movie, but one thing I love about this movie is the like final scene where like the sunrise finally comes up and they have not taken any more souls. The kids have won and defeated them. They explode into sparkles. And it's just so wonderfully Disney. It's like poof, everything is happy and sparkly and everything is fine. And you're kind of like, oh, but yay. Like, yeah. All good. There's something about the sparkle ones that are just fantastic. Paul is reminding me that and this is completely gross, but so Billy Bones' character, who we said comes back to life, is reanimated, and then his mouth is sewn shut by Winifred, the leader of the witches. So he gets his mouth open and moths come out, and this poor actor had to have real moths inside his mouth so that when he opened his mouth out, they came out, and which is just like, I just feel so bad for him. Pre-CGI.
But the effect was great.
That was a good
looking scene. Like,
I hope he got
really
extra
good.
money for that, because that's so gross.
I hope he's on strike right now for residuals.
Seriously.
You go, actors. I thought it was really well done. I need to say what I loved about this one and future projects. The director, Kenny Ortega, he has this way of making things fabulous. He has like the glitter. I'm like, that's Kenny. Like, let's be honest. Like, yeah, it's Disney, but I'm like, because of Kenny.
Yeah. Kenny is jazz hands.
Yeah, he makes it a little. Any project he does, he makes it a little fantastical, a little fabulous, a little magical, a little dramatic. Like, some things are a little more dramatized than they need to be, but he ties it back in with a heartwarming.
Yeah,
I find his focus is always like family and happiness and love and acceptance, and that's what I actually truly genuinely missed with the second one. It's not actually terrible, it's just Kenny Ortega very obviously was not involved.
Yeah.
And I think that was the most disappointing part for me. Because, I mean, like, it's obvious. Like, so I was telling Katie just before, with the newer Star Trek movies that were released, not associated with any TV show, J.J. Abrams was always doing them. And then the first one he didn't do is like, I never thought I would say that I missed lens flares. But I'm like, I am devastated. Because I'm like, it's so obviously not done by J.J. Abrams. I was like, I can't watch this. And that's kind of the same with this one. I'm like, Kenny Ortega has such a distinct style and how he handles his audience, and you miss that in the second one. So shout out to Kenny, we love him. He's also done one of our favorite lockdown shows, Katie and I. It's a children's show. And I was like, Katie, you need to watch this. And she's like, I'm obsessed.
If you're looking for a show that breaks your heart because it's canceled and you know that even before you start, but you still watch it and it still breaks your heart, then you need to watch Julie and the Phantoms on Netflix.
It's such a good show. It's a musical. It's not as fromage as High School Musical.
But pretty close.
It's not as yeah. It's not as fromage because it has slightly more adult topics. Like, it's a little more realistic to teen topics because it wasn't picked up by Disney and Netflix decided to do it, which is actually, rumor has it, that's the reason why Kenny wasn't allowed to come and do the second movie, because he made friends with Netflix when Disney refused to do Julie the way he wanted to do Julie and the Phantoms. So there was a falling out, which I'm like, Disney, fix it. Like, you have a lot of things to fix, but fix your relationship with Kenny Ortega.
Fix just this one. Just this one thing right here. Yeah. Well, I'm trying to I'm like racking my brain to think if there's anything like negative I can say about this movie, but I really can't. I mean, other than the fact that it's campy, but again, it's a kids movie, so it's meant to be.
Yeah.
It's definitely dated in the like silliness
The
of
lingo.
it and the lingo of it and the, and the animatronics of it. But it holds up pretty well. Like, other than a couple of things where you're like, ooh, but like in general, it holds up pretty well. And it's like, it's a really fun rewatch, and it's a fun one to watch every single year, whether you're, single, in a relationship, have kids, in a big group, it's a Halloween party. Like, if you grew up with this movie, it's one that you kind of want to add into your regular
Your holiday
rotation.
roster.
Your holiday roster. Yeah. I think it's up there. And it's funny, there's not like a lot of movies that I like consistently want to watch at Halloween. Like I was saying, there's hardly any that I could remember until we really started thinking about it. This is one that jumps out, probably, and then like rewatching some of the slashers, but even then I don't normally have time to get through all of them, and this one is just one that's so like light and easy to watch that it's doesn't feel like a big ordeal to get all the way through it.
Yeah,
Ooh,
definitely.
Paul's saying there's a third one coming out, so
I've heard there are rumors. And there are rumors that Max, Allison, and Danny might come back. Again, allegedly, they didn't come back for the second one because they weren't really written into it.
Yeah.
There were apparently earlier scripts than the 2021 release. But none of the actors had liked those scripts. So the Hocus Pocus 2 script was the only one that like Bette, Sarah, and Kathy liked. But the kids weren't really written into it, so they kind of were like, look, I'm not just going to do a walk by in the background on a screen just for the sake of it. So they weren't involved in it. Yeah. Allegedly. My immediate reaction, I'm like, clearly the sequel is going to be Danny, whose first love is clearly Thackeray Binx, is going to grow up to be obsessed with the occult. Allison and Danny's kids are going to find book, and they're going to go to crazy Aunt Danny, who still lives in Salem, to learn about magic. And, hijinks ensue. The sisters come back. I'm like, clearly. But no. Maybe Disney should just hire me as a writer.
Yeah, there you go. You never know. They could just completely redo it.
Like, maybe now they can fix it.
All right. Well, if you've seen this movie, or even if you haven't, hey, why not? You can rate it anyway. You can let us know what you thought of this one. Let Val know whether or not she should be watching this one if we haven't swayed her enough in it. This is a hard one to review from a rating system. What are you thinking, Nat?
I don't know. I didn't even think about it. Like, I'm blindsided by our own format of our own podcast. What do I rate it? I have no idea.
There's like no real rating for it. Like, I feel like this needs a different rating system, because it's like I think I didn't even get I think it's still listed as 5 potatoes, because I was just like I just left it for whatever there was last week, because it's not. This is not a good movie. Is it one of my
favorite kids movies? No.
No, but it's definitely it's my favorite kids Halloween movie, but that's a very specific rating.
Yeah.
Paul is going with 4. Paul's going with 4 potatoes.
I am actually even wearing like Hocus Pocus merch right now. This is like Disney Hocus Pocus t-shirt. I'm like, so it's stuck around, like, even just for its longevity. I'd say at least like 4 potatoes. I'm comfortable with 4 potatoes.
You're comfortable with 4. There's something about a cult classic. There's something about being caught up in something that's larger than yourself, right? So it's fun. It's fun to it's fun to get excited about a sequel that it was 25 years or whatever it was in the making. It's fun to watch something every single year and build a tradition around it. It doesn't mean that it has to be good. I think it just needs to be popular. I'm loving. So George is going with 4 pumpkins.
Yes, that's a good idea. Val's like, are you doing pumpkins or potatoes? Val, correct. They're pumpkins.
They're correct. All right. Well, I didn't prep this scene, so why don't we'll go with George's rating of 4 pumpkins. We're going to agree with pumpkins. We're going to agree with 4 jack-o'-lanterns, or Paul could be right. Also could be 4 witches. It could be 4 witches. A coven.
Because Danny obviously is going to grow up to be a witch.
Truth.
Clearly.
It's one of those movies that like you know exactly what you're gonna get, and it delivers on that. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah,
say.
there's no disappointment in watching this. It
No.
is just the right level of, like, you could have it in the background. You don't need to be dedicated to your screen. It's feel good.
Yeah.
It's got a little spooky ooky for Halloween.
Yeah.
Cute, slightly obnoxious children, and
Yeah.
some good '90s lingo.
So good 90s lingo. Apparently, because it wasn't actually like released on Halloween, it was I guess the movie is technically inaccurate if it was supposed to be taking place Halloween 1993, because Halloween 1993 was a Saturday, but the kids are in school on Halloween morning. So if you want to go like really into the accuracy and the facts of this one, that was, I thought, absolutely
Well,
ridiculous and hilarious. I did like that, and I feel this way as a Canadian rewatching all of these movies, but I'm like, wow, like these kids' schools, like, is this what Salem School is actually like? Probably not, but like they had like a kiln in the school, like you could do like pottery at the school. I don't think my school had that. I don't think that was
actually,
a
my
thing.
elementary school did.
Did your elementary school like one that was big enough to kill witches?
No,
Oh, okay.
no. It was Madame Poliquin had it in grade 5. She used to do it, I think, at lunchtimes or after school. And then, yeah. I haven't thought about that in a very long
You're
time.
welcome. You're welcome. I like this
She was a
comment.
math teacher.
I like this comment from Louise, who says, I don't get scared from movies, which is why I always enjoy this flick, because it doesn't try to be scary. Exactly. It puts you at ease. It like makes you feel like you could be part of this genre, even if you're not a big fan of scary movies. And we have convinced Val to go and watch this movie. It's not hard to find if you don't have a VCR, but you do have Disney or Disney Plus. You can access it pretty easily. It's not a hard one to find. Well, we did
It's
it.
definitely recognizable. Like the
It's
characters, it's like you're gonna for sure see at least one set of Sanderson sisters every Halloween. So
Yeah. And if you walk around Salem at all, which I have done now, again this year for like the first time in a long time, went back to Salem at Halloween, and you always like, I had to fight myself because I just want to buy all of the merch. And again, this is the thing. It's like, it's not my favorite movie, and it's not even my favorite kids movie, but I was in Salem and I was like, but I need a Sanderson sisters t-shirt. And I was like, why though? I'm like, but I do. But why though? But I do. So I don't know. There's something about being part of like a movement or a larger group or just something fun. So it's go and watch it. Go and watch it
I
and
need one
enjoy
that
it.
says Amuck.
Yeah, Amuck. Well, we did it. We got through another episode, our last Halloween episode, and if we're gonna do what we normally don't do. We're not gonna choose next week's movie here all together, because we're gonna leave it to be a surprise. Will we do one more Halloween-ish spooky, scary movie, or will we just jump right into the next on our list? You're gonna have to come back
It's
to
like,
find
if
out.
you say Christmas, I'm going to hurt you virtually.
I'm not jumping into Christmas. I'm not jumping into Christmas,
whoa.
but I will preview our Christmas schedule, because if you have not yet realized, Nat and I are big believers that Die Hard is a Christmas movie, so we'll 100% be doing Die Hard. Die Hard was actually, fun fact about the VHS Club, Die Hard was the first one we were going to do together, and then we just didn't get done
our
in
shit
time.
together.
We didn't get our shit together in time, so that we started the podcast in January. So we have been waiting for this whole year to end so that we can do Die Hard. So we've built the hype up in our minds. So we'll have to have a special Die Hard extravaganza, only for those who believe it's a Christmas movie. If you don't, you're not invited. You're not allowed to attend this special extravaganza. So we definitely need to do that one. And then my favorite Christmas movie other than Die Hard, might even be a little bit more than Die Hard, is Christmas Vacation. I'm like love Christmas Vacation. I have to watch that one, so we might force Nat to do that one.
If you haven't discerned this yet, Katie is hugely into Christmas. I am
not into
I will
Christmas.
dip my toes into the water occasionally, And when I decorate for Christmas, people come over and like, are you okay? What happened? Like, it's, Christmas is fine. It's just a lot of stress, which is what I don't like. It's just everybody is so like, there's a timeline and there's a deadline and we have to get to it. And like the stress of it all just made me be like, I'm done.
I love a deadline
little more
and
of
a
the
checklist.
Little more of the Grinch. We should cover the TV Grinch, not the other one.
Yeah, there are like a bunch of other ones, but there's really just one, just the TV Grinch.
No, just the TV one,
Yeah.
But yeah, so
sneak.
I'm gonna try and keep pushing Christmas until December, but who knows what Katie's gonna do?
Nope, I'm gonna be good. Christmas only starts in December. But that means that November is going to be an adventure. So you'll have to tune in to find out what happens. You'll have to share episodes with your friends. Let them know how much you love the show. You'll have to join us for our live studio audience most Thursdays, 9 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, where you can listen and like and review and share and follow wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It's always so fun to be on. Every time I listen, I'm a huge YouTube music person. It's my where I listen to my music and most of my podcasts. And I don't know, it's always just so fun to get to see the show in here. Every now and then it like the other show I'm listening to is like finishes up and then I hear our voices and I'm like, what? so you'll have to listen to it there and let us know. So yeah, I love it. And it's making me so happy seeing everyone say, I love Die Hard. So we'll have to do an extravaganza.
Best live audience ever.
We do. I love it. Well, I'm going to jump over our potato review because I think we have 5 in there and that feels disingenuous. So we're going to go with four jack-o'-lanterns or witches for this one. We'll jump into the wrap and we will see you all next week. Bye, everyone.